Hey everybody, welcome to this video. We're going to talk about Dataverse, and we're going to get into a lot of data topics within Dataverse because a lot of you are going to be potentially using Dataverse in your applications. You will need a premium license in order to follow along with any of these features, or you'll need access to a developer environment, which then will give you access to Dataverse. But I'm assuming you potentially also have the premium license and you're in production, because this is usually the use case where if you're watching a video like this, you're having to really need to understand, more importantly, how do I export data from one environment into the other. So stay tuned towards the end of this video, as we're going to be getting into a lot of that. We're going to be building our way up in several different use cases. I'm going to cover a common use case that happens that I think a lot of videos out there don't show. They simply just take the quick shortcut route and show you how to import data from Excel or import data from CSV, which is quite common, obviously, but in today's modern day and age, everybody's using APIs, and APIs is a way of getting information and data out. And more often than not, you're going to find yourself trying to import data from an external system, but there's no integration tool to deal with that, and not always can you get information into an Excel or a CSV file. You'll wind up having to convert the the JSON into some sort of an Excel document. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do that. So before we get too far down deep into the video, I'm going to come over here to the downloads, and I have this JSON file already prepared. Let's open Visual Studio Code, and we can see that I've got some information here. Now, to help explain this, essentially what I've got here is I have a list of records. And so this is the bracket that depicts the list, and at the bottom at line 1004, you see the other closing bracket. Everything from line 1002 all the way to the top at line 3, these are all the list of records. And so each record list has a comma, as you would assume in JSON. And so with that explanation underway, I want to show you a tool to where how you can convert a couple things, because maybe you want to start here. So here is one of your options. You start off with a blank document. You come over here to the Data tab, and you come over here and you say Get Data from File, and you could choose JSON. Another way that I think you can do here is come over here, and sometimes if you've done this a couple of times, you'll be able to do all of this here. But by and large, just choose Get Data from File and choose the JSON file. Now we have to pick the file. We'll go to Downloads. I'll pick this file that I just showed you. And this is going to open up Power Query. Now, Power Query is not exactly the easiest thing to use if you've never seen it before, because it requires a little bit of essentially Power Query or esoteric knowledge within this particular item. Now, this is quite popular because it is in Excel. If you have the Excel for Microsoft 365, typically this is going to come along for the ride. If you have like a cheap home version of Excel, you probably won't have access to Power Query because that license in 365 may not carry that for you. So if you don't see it, you probably don't have the license for it. But by and large, I think the majority of the people viewing this belong to a company that has a license that has this. The other way that you will have seen this Power Query is in the Power BI desktop. One of the nice pieces or features in this that makes Power BI so powerful is the ability to simply just use this same thing, get data. Let's see here. I don't think we're going to find JSON just off the top here. File, JSON, connect, downloads. Downloads. We'll pick the same file, and inside of Power BI, you will now see the Power Query again. So it's the same thing. A couple different ways. Now, I will show you something interesting. This is also in Dataverse too, by the way, which we're going to get to a little bit further along in the video, but I just wanted to show you multiple ways of using Power Query because it's part of the Power BI and it's part of Excel. It's also part of the Dataverse, and it's also part of Dataflow on Dataverse. So get used to using this tool. The problem that you're going to see, and I'm going to illustrate this right now. I'm in Power BI, and Power BI works very much like the Power Platform and data flows because they're pretty much very close and packaged together. Even though it's the same product, for some unknown reason, there are some discrepancies in the Excel version. I think the Excel version is a little bit lighter. What the use case is or the mindset, if it was intentional by Microsoft or if just potentially a lack of oversight. But in any event, they do behave differently. I want you to look at the applied steps on the right sidebar. It has already converted my table, it's expanded the column, and it's changed the data type for one of my columns. And so this is all great because this came along for the ride. If I go back over here into Excel, none of these steps were automatically applied. I have to know how to do this myself. So I'm going to walk you through how to deal with this. If you choose to go the Excel route, because maybe you want to you want to take the file, convert JSON, and you don't need to buy a third-party tool. You already have the tools to do this. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find this. You want to click on this Convert to Table. Now, take note where we are. We're on the Transform tab, and we have the List Tools. And so what we want to do is convert this list of records to a table. So we're going to click this, and now it's going to bring up this. Now, the first thing you might be inclined, hey, this is a comma-separated file. Let's go ahead and click that. And so let's click this, and now boom, something bad happens. And now, excuse me, not only does something bad happen, but now I potentially can't get back to that tab because that tab is gone. So now I'm at a point of no return. Most people would just close and try this again. You don't have to do that. Just delete the last step that caused the error, and now you're right back to where you needed to be. Unfortunately for this, because we're converting of type JSON, picking the delimiter for the records, the list of records, because it is delimited by a comma, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work in this use case. Don't do anything. Just click OK. That's all you need to do. So it's so simple that it's easy to screw up, but it's unintuitive that you would do that. It's more intuitive to choose comma, but as you saw, that chokes and blows it up. Okay, so now life is good. We now have a table, but then the problem here is that I still have the same structure. I have a list of records. And so now what am I going to do? What I want to do is I want to expand these records into a column in this table. So I just have one column called column 1, and all I have is this record. But this little symbol right here that you may or may not have missed is a potentially part of the transform operation. And so as a result, we can also come over here and deal with this. So let's click this. And what you'll see is it's going to each one of the records. And it's seeing what are the columns and what is the data that's in each of those columns. Now this is helpful. So for those of you coming from an Apache world, coming from a non-relational database management system, aka RDBMS, then you might be coming from a NoSQL environment. You might be coming from maybe Mongo or something like that. And you already know that it's a schema list type of database, which is why it's NoSQL. And as a result of that, this is helpful because you can flatten out all of your column names, because maybe this record 13 doesn't have first name or last name. It just has ID and email. And so it's going to see that, and it's okay. You'll have null values for those columns, but nonetheless, you'll still get the column flattened. So just, again, click OK. And now we've got these weird-looking column names, okay? So unfortunately, there's not a really good way to clean this up other than literally double-clicking into it and just saying ID and deleting everything else and then hitting Enter. And then once again, coming in here, thanks to the dark background, I have a really ugly looking, whatever. So let's delete, well, see, it's so dark I couldn't see the period. So hopefully we'll get rid of column 1. And we just have email. And now all of my renamed column operations is done in one fell swoop. So I've renamed my columns. I've got everything done here. I've also could have done this in Excel too. So I think at this point, life is looking good. And at this point, we are absolutely good to go. So I am now going to come over here to Home and choose Close and Load. And now this is going to be here in my Queries and Connections, which under the Data tab is over here in this Queries and Connection. That's what this thing is right here. If I click that, that toggles it off. So if for some reason you were to close this and can't find it again, it's under the Data tab, it's under the Query and Connections. And now you can get back to it. And if you double click on this or choose Edit, it'll take you back into Power Query and you can do some transform. Now, in data operations, you should already know this, there's this thing called ETL. It's an acronym for Extract, Transform, and Load. So what we're doing is we're loading and we're transforming here, and essentially we're extracting information out of the file. So that's kind of that ETL is all here. Load also could be load into the destination, but in this case we're simply just loading in an Excel spreadsheet. Now I could do File, Save As, Browse, Download, and I can call this my XLS data video. Okay, so now I have an Excel file. So this Excel file now represents, I'm going to close this. This is Power BI. And now I have my Excel data, and I also have my JSON. So I have two different methods of dealing with this. Okay, here I have a new environment. It's brand new, it's fresh, it's called Foo. In my environments, I just created this. I said I wanted to go ahead and I gave it a name Foo. I came down here, changed it to type of production, left everything else the same, and I said add a Dataverse data store. And at this point, life was good, and I just hit next, blah, blah, blah. I hit next, and then it created the environment. Okay, so that's where I've got it. Now, because of that, if I go into the environment, you can see add Dataverse. I have the option to add Dataverse. So if you do this and you set this up and you don't have any tables in your Dataverse, essentially you've enabled the feature to be there, but you don't actually, until you actually use it for the first time, it may not exist for you. On the front of the house, if I come over here into the environment switcher and I switch to my other environments, Foo, okay, I'm coming over here to tables, and you can see that I don't have a Dataverse database. So either way, either place, you can create this database. So I'm going to create it here. We're going to choose include sample apps and data. I don't want to do that. I'll just choose create my database. Here's where you set the currency and the locale. Okay, create that. Again, for most of you, this is probably a step that is absolutely unnecessary, but I'm taking this literally from grassroots for you. All right, this should finish up in just a few moments. I'm going to pause. Okay, wasn't too bad, maybe about 45 seconds from the pause. But in any event, I now have what's called my common data service, or my common, I forget what it's called. There's CDS and there's another C variation of it. It basically just means that it gave me a bunch of entities or tables for free that allows me to build applications now on this. I can also create custom tables, which is what we're going to do right now, because we're going to create a brand new custom table. Now, you have the opportunity or the option to import data, which is going to be potentially from the Excel file. So let's go take the easy route first. Let's set up a table based on the Excel file, because I'm going to show you both the easy way and then I'm going to show you the hard way. And we have already shown you how to convert the JSON into Excel, so hopefully that'll be helpful for you there. Now what we're going to do is, I guess, wait 1,000 hours for this thing to load. I may pause again. I hate having these things just twirl away. Okay, that was about another 30 seconds for whatever reason. And I'm importing data. Essentially, it's wanting me to pick a table or a schema to import the data into. So let's see, choose the entity you want to import. And I'm not going to choose anything. I want to do a custom entity. So this is going to essentially have me import data right into an existing entity, which I do not want to do. This is bizarre. This didn't used to be like this. So let me just cancel this. Let's try this one more time. Import data from Excel. or new table. Let's see, describe. Here we go. Create an no, I don't want to create an external. I don't want to create a virtual table. I literally want to import data from Excel. Well, I guess it's not going to let us do it this way anymore. It used to be a really nice, quick, and easy way. So I guess takeaway here is you could and should use this if you have an existing table, but you would have to map your entities, meaning map your column. Well, yeah, it is mapping an entity too. But what you need to do is take your source Excel file, and inside you have column names. So if I were to, pick this, then it's going to take you into this new thing, and then I'll have to upload the file, and then here's where you're going to need to map the columns from the Excel file and show and tell where you want it to be in the destination. In this case, we simply just want to import the data and create a table in one fell swoop. So they keep changing all of this, which is for the better, but in both use cases now, I'm going to choose import data. Before I go there, I want to show that this data flow thing is exactly what's going to happen. So if you can't see data flow, if you click on more, you'll find data flow. You can pin it right here with the pin, that pin, push pin. And so with data flows there, now you'll create this data flow in this step. So either you can choose import data here, which will open up a wizard, or you can come over here to data flow, and inside of data flow, you can choose this drop down, import template, or new data flow. And either one will kind of essentially take you to the same area. But it makes most sense because most people would potentially do it here. So we're going to choose import data, and this time we're going to choose the source. So kind of got to read through this. Again, we're in Power Query inside of the Power Platform. So we saw Power Query earlier, but now we're seeing an expanded version of it, specifically made for the Power Platform. So our source file is going to be this Excel. So I'm going to upload the file, and you may say, hey, what's going to happen here? What's going on? Or maybe something happened to the file and you are concerned about or have questions about where this thing might go if you upload it. So if you come over here to your OneDrive, there's an apps folder. And if you click on apps, right now I don't have it, it just says Microsoft Edge. Eventually there will be like a Power Query folder that's going to show up. So we'll push this to the back for the moment. Let me browse. Let's upload this Excel data file. And now we'll have that there. It says I'm not signed in. I'm not doing a gateway. I'll just sign in. So that should take me in. And now life is good, and I can click next. But before I do, now I can show you. Here's the Microsoft Power Query folder. Inside of there is a folder called Uploaded Files, and inside of that folder is this. Now, the reason that it does this, or whatever, Microsoft Power Automate does this, not Power Automate, Power Query does this, is that the person doing the uploading is going to have their OneDrive used in this data operation. The reason I mention this is it's not a central location. It's not like it's using some cloud service that's in the cloud for Power Platform, which would be, in my opinion, a better idea because for whatever reason, there are other administrators on the environment that might need to go in and get to this stuff or see this stuff or whatever the case may be. And with this being trapped in your personal OneDrive, it's in a vacuum, it's isolated, it's the age-old problem. If that person quits, that OneDrive goes away, like you lose access to all of this. So unless you also are a global or system administrator, you're never going to be able to get to this. So I just wanted to show you where that file is, but we'll just assume life is good and everything's fine. You'll never need to deal with that, but just a quick aside to let you know about those disclaimers. I'm going to go ahead and click next. And at this point now we're going to choose a destination, where I want this thing to go or where I want this thing to be. And right now it's looking at the data that is inside of the video. And let's see if we can find the information that we're looking for. So we got a couple of different tabs or a couple different Excel workbooks that it's seeing. So I'm just going to choose this first one. Put a tick in the tick box for that. And here we have the typical Power Query preview. So this all looks good. We should have like 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000 records in here. So we're going to choose next. Now this is where we can essentially run this Power Query operation to transform the data, but we've already transformed it earlier using Power Query and Excel. So everything should be and is good to go. So all we have to do is choose next. Okay, and in the next segment of this video, we're going to load the JSON in, and we're going to use Power Query inside of here. So we're going to show you this both ways. All right, here we got a new table. Now we're going to create the table. Let's do demo Excel. We'll just do Excel data. Not data. And let's remove this, and here we'll just do that like that. Okay, so we're going to leave everything the way that it is. We're just going to change the table name so that we can find it. We'll choose next. Okay, refresh manually. This is good. This is the setting. So I want, for those of you that came from Windows Task Scheduler or cron files on Apache, or rather Linux, this is essentially what Dataverse is it allows you to do schedule operations. So if you had an ongoing need to synchronize data from a source to a destination, you could set this to either refresh automatically. In some cases, depending on your licensing, you could set it up as schedule. In any event, as soon as I click publish, this is going to go now. Now I can publish this now, or I can schedule this to run, or this data operation to run at a later time, which may be helpful, especially if you're going to import into a production system and you don't want to slow the system down during business hours. You could schedule this to import data to an existing table, say, I don't know, off hours or after hours. In this case, I'm just going to publish it now. Now, the reason I showed you data flows earlier is because when you do that publishing, you now have this new data flow. And it has to go through a couple of phases or steps. First, it has to get it set up. Then when it's set up, then it needs to run. And then when it runs, it'll complete, and then it'll say that it's not been refreshed. Now, you can manually refresh this at any given point in the future, or you can simply, if this is just a one-time deal, you can delete the data flow when you're done with it. So I'm going to pause the video, and we'll come back when this is finished. Okay, this operation's done. Unfortunately, there was a green banner that said the information was done, it was published, and everything was good. So you see I got a green check box next to published. And so I want you to say, look over here where it says next refresh. Right now it's importing all of the data. So it took about a minute and a half to create the job, and now it's running the actual job itself. So this will be done in probably another minute or two, so I'll pause again. Okay, so life's good. It is done. Last refresh, that's complete. We got check marks next to all of these. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we don't need it. It was just a one-time import. And so now when we come over here to tables, we can see all our tables. We're going to click on custom, and now we have our Excel data table. So with that being said, we now have all of the data in here. I can show the other columns that we got: first name, ID, somewhere last name should be in here. I think those were all the columns here. I'll just click save, and we don't really need this one. We'll hide this, and let's just move this all the way to the beginning, and let's sort this from small to large. So now we have a sorted ID 1 2 whatever. So all 1,000 rows of data, 990. Okay, yeah, it's showing 10, and we got a 990 is 1,000. So we have 1,000 rows of data inside of Dataverse. We've created the table, created the schema, imported everything from the import wizard, and we showed you a Power Query to manipulate a couple things. All right, we're going to go through this one more time. This time we're going to go back out to tables. We're going to choose import data. This time we're going to do what you saw that we did in Excel, and we're going to see that a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be done for us. So we're simply just going to either drag and drop the JSON file in here, which is the quick and easy way, or if you want to go with more clicks, you can click more, find JSON in the list, upload that JSON file. So we'll browse, we'll go to downloads, we'll choose this JSON file, And we already have the connection from the last import, so we can use this again. We'll hit next. This will bring open, or should bring open Power Query. And the nice thing about this is, just like Power BI, this version of Power Query is applying all of those steps for us. We don't have to do this. Thank you, Microsoft, for doing this. This is really, really great. But you still should take the time to look. So this is integer, whole number, and then we have text columns for this. So life is good. We'll hit next. And we've already named the last table Excel data. So we're going to do a new query. We'll just call this JSON table. JSON table. We'll have a pretty name there. Next. And refresh manually. We're just going to hit publish. I'm not going to hit publish now because doing that does publish it now. We come over to data flows. Remember, we deleted the last data flow. So now we got to go through the same rigmarole. I'm going to pause since we've already seen what this does, and I'll show it to you when it's finished. Okay, so as you can see, this looks extremely similar to the last one. Again, we'll just go ahead and delete this. We only need this one time, so we can see that we have that run. And while that's being deleted, we'll dismiss this as well. Come back over to tables. We'll click on custom. And now we have this additional JSON table. And just like before, we can come over here and turn on email, first name, ID, JSON table. I don't need created on, and I don't need name. So we'll choose this. We'll move the ID over first. Whoops, I don't need this. Here, let's do this again. Get rid of JSON table. I need last name. Where's last? Here it is. Okay, so we got first, last, email, ID. We'll sort small to large. Okay, we're right back to where we were with the other table. Okay, so now that we have all of this great and wonderful information, I want to take these, we'll pick one of these custom tables. Anyway, we're just going to pick one of these tables. Let's do, say, the JSON table, okay? And what we want to do is we want to take this schema, and I want to take this schema, and I want to not only take the schema, but I want to take all of the data, and I want to put it into my David Soden's environment, okay? So this is like the destination or the target, and then the source is going to come from Foo. So the way that you do this, it's pretty involved, but we're going to walk through it. This is not going to be a full, comprehensive breakdown of all of the components that we're going to do here. I'm only going to give you the necessary steps to pull off this task. So first thing you need to do is come over here to Solutions. Click New Solution. We're going to call this Migration. And you can choose a publisher if you so choose. At this point, I'm just going to pick the default publisher. We're going to call this Migration. We'll click Create. Now, if you are dealing with a situation where you need to have a publisher because you want to have maybe a custom prefix on your table data or something, then yes, you should not skip that step. Now or there is the time to make sure you set all of that up. All right, so I'm going to choose existing data. We're going to choose table. At this point, I'm going to choose, what did we say we were going to do? JSON table. So we'll choose this, and we're just going to, don't select anything, just let it be, and click Add. So now we've added the existing table. We have a new solution, we have a table, and at this point, I'm going to come back out to the solution. Here's the solution migration, and I'm going to export the solution. I don't have to do anything here because it's good to go, and I'm going to export it as unmanaged because I want to make sure that I can deal with this in a way, or you could do it managed if you in fact wanted to have it managed in this case. So I will stop and pause here because I can see people listening to this video needing to have two different things. If you're in a situation where you're moving information from, say, development over into QA, then you might want to consider doing things in a managed export here because you don't want QA monkeying with your schema. You don't want them changing anything. You simply just want them to use the applications, but you don't want them to edit the applications or do anything to it. This would ensure that whatever it is that they're doing or any bugs that they report, it weren't self-inflicted and you as a developer chasing squirrels, because it's not in the development environment. The problem's in the QA environment. It's because they did something stupid to it. All right, so in this case, all you're going to do is choose whichever one you want. Again, if it's managed, essentially the way to remember this, if it's managed, it's locked down to the destination environment that you're putting it in. If it's unmanaged, then it's just like it is in the development environment. You can do anything you want to do to it. For simplicity, I'm just going to choose unmanaged. There's something I want to show you in or disclaim when we get into the extra, after we do the importing of the data. So while this is running, this is a good opportunity to explain that this operation is only going to move over the schema. It's not going to do anything for the data, unfortunately, and we're going to have to deal with this in a certain way. So the first thing I want you to do is come over here and I want you to type in Power Platform CLI. This will take you hopefully to this area or page. The first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out what is Microsoft Power Platform CLI. Your goal here is installing the tool. So right here in this article is install Power Platform CLI. Now you're going to get this table. This table is going to give you a couple of different ways to install this. Here's the two ways that I recommend. First, install with the Windows. This will get you the base platform to install it with. If you're on Macintosh, then you probably will need to install with the .NET tool, okay? But if you, by and large, most folks hopefully should be on Windows. If you are, just download this, which I'm going to do for this video. The other thing to go back real quick is after you've installed this, you might want to also install the Visual Studio Code extension if you're a pro dev, because this will allow you to access the PAC tool or Power Platform CLI inside of Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. I'm sorry, Visual Studio Code, because it's the extension for that. Anyway, we're just going to put the Windows one. We get here, we want to click on this install. So now under install, download the Power Platform CLI, and it's a wizard. So all we do is just download it and life should be good. We'll click here, we'll click downloads, we'll double click on this. Unfortunately, I have two monitors, so I've got all these pop-ups. I dragged it from the other screen. Now we're going to run the wizard. We'll just hit install. Life is good. We'll just kind of hang out here for a second or two and wait, and it's done. I had a black DOS looking dialog box that popped up, or command line window. Anyway, it went away, it came up, went away. Just hit finish, and there's nothing to see. It's absolutely done. So the next thing that you'll want to do is come over here to your command prompt. I always like to run it as an administrator, that way I make sure I don't have to rerun it again. So I just right click on the command line. If you don't see this here, just type in CMD into the search box, CMD, and you'll see this will show up on the left. Just come over here and run as administrator. You'll get a dialog box confirming whether or not you actually do want to run this as an administrator. And the way that you use the Power Platform command line interface tool, if you're not familiar, there's documentation in those help sites that you just saw that I went to. Make sure you read all of it, but you can just use the tool almost in and of itself to kind of walk you through the different pieces of it. I don't want to talk and go through all of this. I have other videos where I cover a little bit of the Power Platform command line tool, but in any event, all you do is type in PAC, P-A-C, and that will give you a list of all of your potential options that you have here. Let's go ahead and check on this to see if it's downloaded or ready to download, and it is. So now we've got that downloaded. All right, so that download data is there. That is very helpful. Let's go and deal with this first before we go back to the command line tool interface. I want to now come over to the target environment, David Soden, and I want to come over here to solution. Let's get rid of this piece, and I want to choose import solution, browse, and I'm going to import my migration unmanaged solution. Click next. Choose import, and now this thing's going to run. All right, so now with that running in the background, let's go back to the command line tool. So what we're doing here in the GUI, in the web GUI, in the Power Platform environment that you saw that we were in, which again is up here at make.powerapps.com, is you are only going to move the solution from environment A to environment B. However, that solution is going to produce an empty table. You're not going to get any of the data that comes along for the ride. So this is part of the problem that you're trying to solve. And so there's a couple different ways to do this. There's a lot of different strategies that you could use to do this. I'm going to show you this way in this video because it's the way that I do it. It's the way I personally prefer to do it, but I do acknowledge there are many, many ways to do this, including third-party tools, which I will digress for just a quick moment. There is this tool called the XRM Toolbox. This is an ultimate set of tools for Microsoft Dynamics, and so you have all these different tools, and you can see the categories here. One of them is data. In any event, you could use something like this, but again, I don't want to overwhelm you with 10 different ways to boil the ocean. We're just going to show you the one. And so with this, what we need to do is come down here to this tool. And this is Power Platform Tools that can be installed and launched. So let's type in pack and then choose tool. PAC tool. Run that. And now we have these commands. We can list the tools. We can admin the tools. We can do maker. Let's say launch Power Platform Admin Center. So we don't want to do that. Maker, yeah, we don't need to do that. Let's see. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is the list. Let's list the tools. So I arrowed up on my keyboard. There's arrow up, arrow down, left, right. You'll have to find it on your keyboard. But anyway, I arrowed up. And so now if I type list, this will show us a list of the tools. Now the one that we want is the CMT tool. Okay, now I already have previously had this installed. So the point here is that I don't need to install it again. Where it says installed, yours will say no. But as soon as you run it for the first time, it's going to essentially tell you that, hey, you need to install it, and it's going to just do it for you. You don't have to do anything. It just will do it for you. So instead of pack tool list, I'm going to do pack tool CMT. This is going to pop up an app. It's going to do probably on my other screen. Yeah, it did. All right, so now this is going to get you to here. So with this being said, a couple different things. I need to go ahead and first create a schema. And I'm going to hit continue. And you're going to have to figure this out for your own environment. So you need to show advanced, and you need to click this show display list of available organizations, and you need to put your credentials in here for this one, and you need to choose Office 365. As soon as you do this and you hit log on, it's going to get a list of your environments and your options, and now it's going to ask you to pick. Essentially, it's not very clear. You need to just pick an environment is the plain English version of this. Like, what environment do you want to create the schema from? So I need the schema created, which is going to create an XML file, and I need that for the next operation for exporting and then importing the data potentially. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is choose foo, because this is where that table exists. Choose log on, and now I get this screen, and I got to wait a second for it to load. A couple different interesting things. I can automatically come down here to pick and find my migration. See, it's got a green box. All the rest of them are locked. If I choose the migration, it's going to see that I already have tables in that solution, right? And I can go ahead and choose that. The other item that this was, if I just close this window and go back to create schema and then choose this again, choose foo. The other way I could have done this is the default solution is there by default. And because the default solution is there, I can simply choose the account. Now, I would advise, or I would suggest, since you've already created the solution, to pick the solution that you created from, because it makes it super easy. It gives you a focused scope. If you choose default solution, you're going to get every single thing that's in the environment. It makes it a lot harder for you to figure out stuff, but we'll go the hard route just so that I can show you this in case you decide to choose that option. You're going to have to scroll and scroll to find the J's, because that's what we called it, I believe. Here's JSON table. Here it is. And so from here, I need to choose add all. This will, oh shoot, I've already messed up. All right, hopefully, yeah, I'm not going to be able to terminate this, will I? Close all windows. I'm going to come back to this tool, and I have to even, oh, okay. Anyway, I'm back at this area. What we want to do is create the schema, continue, log, boo, login. All right, let's find that table again. That was JSON table. Here we go. JSON table. If we click this, there's nothing related to it. Anyway, I've got all of this. I can add the entity. If I click here, look at the fields, I've got all of that. Add the fields, entity updated, life's good. All right, save and export. At this point, I just need to give it a name. I'm just gonna call this schema, my schema, save. I'm saving into the downloads, okay? Would you like to export the data? So it created the schema, but now it's going to give me an opportunity to export all the data. Yes, I do want to export the data. Now you got to give the data file a name. So if you click this ellipsis, it'll give you a name for you. See how it says data.zip? That's fine. Just do that and click save. Or change the name if you choose. Doesn't really matter. And now just choose export data. So now we've got the schema. We've got, see that? 1,000 rows were exported. I can go ahead and choose exit. And at this point, now I can choose import data. But before you choose import data, make sure that the solution has been successfully installed at the destination or the target environment, because this import operation expects that schema table, even though it's empty, to be there. And so with this being done, we can see that it's successfully completed. If we come over here to tables, again, I'm in David Soden's environment, not Foo. And if I come over here to tables and do custom, somewhere in here should be my JSON table. Right here it is, okay? So we know that this is good. So let's, I clicked the wrong table, of course. JSON table. We can see that it is empty. And this is the problem that we're trying to solve. Not only do we need to create the same thing in a new environment, but the requirement is we got to take the data along for the ride. And that's where this tool comes in. All right, we're going to import the data. We're going to choose continue. Again, check these boxes, hit login. This time we're going to select our destination environment because this is where we're importing the data into. Choose log on. And now it's saying select the zip file generated by the export process. And this is the process that we previously ran. So this is the migration solution. So we don't want to choose that. What we want is this data zip file. Okay. And now at this point we've selected, just choose import data. And now it's bringing in all 1,000 rows into that schema table. Life should be good. We can see we got 24, 48. It does take a few moments for it to go. It's not super fast. So I am going to pause because this does take just a few moments. Well, we're coming down the home stretch. We're about 800 something records. So I'm just going to let this play out because this should wrap up in just a few moments. And it's like watching the microwave cook food. Takes forever. Okay, process completed. This is all well and good. So we don't have any errors. We'll hit exit. Now we can get rid of this. I've already closed the command line tool for the Power Platform command line interface, so that's gone. So now with this being done, we have data in the table. I'll just refresh the screen. And at this point, we have, now we're in a David Soden environment, our new environment. And just like before, we can uncheck these. We'll do these in order so we don't have to deal with the sorting of all these tables again. And then I just need email for last. And then all I need to do is sort this from smaller to large, and bada bing, bada boom. Now you've seen all kinds of really cool tools to put in your toolbox. Literally, I showed you some tools. We showed you some third-party tools. Anyway, there's lots of great information here. Please like, please subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for this video. I hope this was helpful. We'll have a great day. Bye-bye.